Hello everyone, welcome to Options with Doug, streaming live on Monday and Wednesday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Bookmap Discord and the Bookmap YouTube channel. Before I get started, I need to go through the disclosures. General disclosure, all Bookmap limited materials, information, and presentations are for educational purposes only and should not be considered specific investment advice nor recommendations. Risk disclosure, trading futures, equities, and options involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. Here's my contact information. The best way to get in touch with me is through Discord. My name on Discord is Doug P. Also in Bookmap Discord, there's an Options-Doug chat channel. You can post questions, comments, and content related to the topics of my presentation and the topics of the channel that I'll go through in just a moment. I'm also on X. My name there is @Pless. I do have one announcement. This is about the Bookmap February Blue Jacket competition. For this month, Bookmap is looking for posts on social media that shows or that focuses on trading within Bookmap in the Bookmap platform. It can be either live, simulated, or replay. You just need to show your entrance, show where you entered and exited Bookmap in Bookmap. And you can scan the QR code for more information. You can post on social media, X, or I think maybe Instagram, LinkedIn, with the the free blue jacket hashtag. All right, so that's the blue jacket competition. All right, let's move on. Here are the key tenets to my approach to trading. I believe that options trades a market maker hedging activity are key drivers of price in many stocks and futures. That certainly applies to large cap tech stocks like the Magnificent Seven stocks, as well as the equity index futures like the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ 100. And for the S&P 500, SPX is the underlying index, SPY is the ETF version of that index, and the S futures contract is a derivative of SPX. And when traders buy and sell puts and calls in SPX and SPY, market makers take the opposite side of the trades and they hedge their delta exposure with the S futures. And for the NASDAQ 100, NDX is the underlying index, QQQ is the ETF version of that index, and the NQ futures contract is a derivative of NDX. And just like the S&P 500, when traders buy and sell puts and calls in NDX and QQQ, market makers take the opposite side of the trades and they hedge their delta exposure with NQ futures. The focus of my presentation today and the focus of the Options-Doug chat channel is options order flow, the impact of options markets on stocks and futures, and the influence of market maker hedging flow on price action. I have a two-step process for trading, and the first is planning. And I use positional analysis. I look at how traders and market makers are positioned in the options market and how those positions change from day to day to develop a thesis regarding the expected trading range and volatility for the day, as well as their directional bias. And the second step in my process is execution. I'll look at real-time order flow in Bookmap and real-time market maker hedging flow in Spotgamma Hero to confirm my thesis and for setups. And when I talk about setups today, I will be focusing on an underlying asset. Setups in that asset can be taken with futures contracts, shares of stock, or options depending on the asset as well as the way you like to trade. Questions and comments are welcome. And I will be watching both the Options-Doug chat channel as well as the chat and YouTube for your questions and comments. Please feel free to post. I'll do my best to answer your questions. Here's my agenda for today, Monday, February 9th. First of all, I'm going to go over news items, economic data, events, and earnings for this week. Then I'll go through my positional analysis. Then I'll review some setups earlier today. Then I'll take a look at the live market. And when I get to live market, if anyone has any stocks they want me to take a look at, please let me know and I'll be glad to do that. All right, let's get started with news items. So let's take a look at the Spotgamma dashboard home screen. Take a look at the events calendar. And I'm not sure all of this is correct. But based on my understanding, data coming out this week, first of all, retail sales tomorrow at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Then the big jobs report that was supposed to be released last week comes out Wednesday. It was delayed due to the partial government shutdown. So this is the jobs report for January on Wednesday, 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And then on Friday, CPI data comes out at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. So employment data and inflation data on Wednesday and Friday. All right, there are some earnings reports coming out that you might want to pay attention to. First of all, on Tuesday after the close, Robinhood reports earnings. Looks like almost a 10% expected move, plus or minus. So that's Robinhood. Coinbase, that's on Thursday after the close. And there are some software stocks reporting earnings this week. And as you know, software stocks have been beat up quite a bit. There's Datadog, Shopify, and looks like AppLovin there. All right, so more earnings reports. The 6 of the 7 Mag 7 stocks have already reported earnings. NVDA is the only Mag 7 stock that has not reported earnings. All right, so that's this week. Data releases and earnings reports. All right, so let's move on to positional analysis. And I'm going to start with the SP 500. This is the ES Futures and Bookmap. And let me point out some key levels. And I have SPX and SPY levels over here, as well as key ES levels. So let me go through some of these levels. So this is the 6900, SPX 6900 level, noted as support in the Spotgamma AM Founders Note. That did act as support, and this was before the cash open. Then after the cash open, S&P 500, ES, SPX, SPY traded above the SPX 6915 volatility trigger and the SPY 690 absolute gamma strike volatility trigger. And those were good entry points for long. We'll talk about that in just a couple minutes. And oops, it looks like I have the wrong color for the 690 level. And then this 6950, SPX 6950 level, that has been Spotgamma's bull bear line in the sand. So now, according to Spotgamma, the S&P 500 is in the bullish zone above 6950. And then finally, here's the ES upper daily expected move, acting as resistance. And note, I did post that level in the Options-Doug chat channel in Discord yesterday. That level acting as resistance. All right, before I spend more time on this chart, let's step back. Let's take a look at our higher time frame. I'm going to go to the SPX, the underlying index. Start with a 1 year, 1 day chart. So SPX has been rallying since last April last year, making a series of lower highs, higher lows and higher highs, and finding a resistance right around 7,000. So traders have been buying every dip, even as the uptrend has become more volatile. Traders continue to buy dips. And again, resistance at right around 7,000. All right, let's take a look at a shorter time frame. Let's go to a 30-day 1 hour chart. This is again a Thinkorswim 30-day 1 hour chart, and this is showing the recent range for SPX between the 6,800 put wall and now the 7,000 call wall. So that is the range for the last 30 days, really the last couple of weeks or so. All right, let's take a look at the levels on this chart. I'm going to start with the expected moves. Dashed purple lines are showing the lower and upper weekly expected move. This is based on the options market, based on the closing price for SPX from last Friday. Those levels remain in place for the entire week. And then the dashed blue line showing the lower and upper daily expected move, also based on the options market, based on the closing price for SPX from last Friday again. So the weekly expected move, that remains in place for the entire week, and then the daily expected move, that changes every day. And again, I did post the expected moves for SPX, ES, and NQ. I post those every day in the Options-Jug chat channel. And we saw the SP 500 found resistance at the ES, upper daily expected move, and that's just short of the SPX upper daily expected move. And note those expected moves are a little bit different because SPX closes before ES every day, every afternoon. All right, let's take a look at the spot gamma levels on this chart. These are based on gamma weighted open interest. They're provided to spot gamma subscribers. I'm going to go with the key day, point out the key daily levels. First of all, there's the put wall at 6,800. That's a strike with large net negative gamma that can be expected to act as support. The next level up is the volatility trigger at 69.15, key level for today. Then a spot gamma's proprietary volatility and gamma flip level. Below that level, market makers' position on the gamma curve is negative. In a negative gamma environment, market makers have to trade with price to hedge their delta exposure. That tends to enhance or increase volatility. Above that level, market makers' position on the gamma curve is positive. In a positive gamma environment, market makers have to trade against price to hedge their delta exposure. That tends to subdue or decrease volatility. Note that is based on Spot Gamma's older total open interest model. And we'll take a look at Gamma based on their newer synthetic open interest model in just a couple minutes. All right, so key for today is SPX is trading up above its volatility trigger. Then finally, the 7,000 level, that is the call wall. That's a strike or large net positive gamma that can be expected to act as resistance. And that's also the absolute gamma strike, the strike with large absolute positive and negative gamma. All right, so as you know, the call wall was at 7,100 last week. Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Actually, it was at that level all week last week, and now moved down to 7,000. So that's slightly bearish, with the call wall moving down to 7,000 from 7,100. And also the volatility trigger also shifted lower. So a bearish brace for SPX. A little unusual given the big rally on Friday. All right, let's wrap up our view of SPX with a 1-minute chart. All right, so the rally last week, end of last week after a big drop earlier in the week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So the rally actually began late Thursday, gap up on Friday, big move up, and then a gap down yesterday, and then the rally continues with the 7,000 call wall just up above. All right, so let's zoom in on this just a little bit here. All right, so again, key level for today. SPX rallying up above its 69.15 volatility trigger. All right, let's take a quick look at SPY. Then we'll get back to Bookmap. All right, so this is showing the rally began overnight last Thursday, continued on Friday, chop around overnight on the open yesterday evening. Now let's zoom in. Initial support right around the 689 zero gamma level, then key support at the 690 absolute gamma strike volatility trigger. And then a steady rally up, making a series of very nice series of higher lows. Looks like now finding a resistance right around 695 level. All right, for SPY, three levels actually shifted higher. Volatility trigger, put wall, and absolute gamma strike. So a bullish hat trick for SPY. All right, so that's SPY. Now back to Bookmap. So again, I pointed out the key SPX and SPY levels on this chart. We isolated those in the SPX and SPY charts, and now we can see them a little bit more clearly on the ES chart. And there's the 7,000 absolute gamma strike call wall up above. Maybe a target for later on in the week. All right, note there's, so I'm focusing on primarily SPX and SPY levels, and the these are Spotgamma levels that I'm showing here. And this is where market makers may have to change their hedging, and they often do. And we'll see plenty of examples of that with single stocks today. All right, note there's a difference in price between ES and SPX, and today it is right around, it's 19 to 20 points. Maybe a little bit closer to 19 now. I'm still using 20. So I'm showing SPX 6900 at ES 6920. And I do post the index relationships that I use every day in Discord. All right, so those are levels in play for S&P 500. Let's move on. Let's take a look at NASDAQ. NASDAQ, strong move today. So this is the NQ Futures of Bookmap. And let me, before I take a closer look at this chart, let's take a look at the underlying index charts. I'm going to first go to QQQ. Zoom out on this. All right, so just after the open, QQQ found support. Looks like just above this 605 large gamma 4 level, and is now trying to move up above its 615 volatility trigger. Again, a nice steady uptrend up until about noon. Very nice series of higher lows, finding resistance just right around 616. All right, so that's QQQ. Key support today at the large gamma 4 level at 605. A little bit of congestion at the 610 level, large gamma 3 level. All right, let's take a look at NASDAQ, NDX. Zoom in on this. Note the volatility trigger, key level, resistance, right around 945. Then a few minutes later, support. That's at the 25,090 volatility trigger. Key level. And good secondary entry point for long, right around 1030. All right, back to Bookmap. So let's zoom in on this. All right, so there's the, you can't see the label here. It's overwritten by one of the NQ labels, the 950 level. But this is the QQQ large gamma 4 level. acting as support right at the open. And then here's that pullback at 10:30 to the NDX 25,090 volatility trigger. And note, NQ has traded up to its upper daily expected move as well, and then stalling, finding resistance at that level. So again, both the ES and NQ upper daily expected moves working as expected. And again, I did post those levels in Discord yesterday. Yesterday afternoon. All right, so that's NQ. Strong rally, now stalling. So we'll talk about setups in just a couple of minutes. All right, so let's wrap up our positional analysis by taking a look at gamma. So let's go to the trace gamma heat map. Go to trace gamma heat map. Let's step back in time. So what this is showing is market maker's gamma position for SPX. So we're going to step back, take a look at how market maker's gamma position looked right after the open. So what we've taken a look at so far, the levels, those are updated once a day. Overnight, they're based on open interest, which again is updated once a day. And now we're looking at data that is closer to real time. This is updated every 10 minutes. So this is showing market maker's gamma position for SPX. Blue shading shows positive gamma. And remember, in positive gamma, we're looking for lower volatility. Market makers trading against price. Red shading shows negative gamma. And negative gamma, we're looking for higher volatility with market makers trading with price. And that dividing line today is it's labeled hedge wall here, but it is the volatility trigger, same thing, at 69.15. And that is the dividing line between positive gamma up above and negative gamma down below. So let's step through time. And we'll see the positive gamma building up above as price moves higher. Strong positive gamma building at the 69.70 strike. That means traders are selling calls, market makers buying the calls. And SPX continues to rally, and it looks like that gamma diminishes at 69.70 and starts to build up and down around 7,000 call wall. And note right around noon, the hero signal dropped sharply lower. That's shown by this line right here. The rally stalled with positive gamma up above. And again, that was also the ES upper daily expected move. So plenty of reasons to look for the rally to stall, potentially be the high of the day. With the positive gamma up above, the ES upper daily expected move, and the hero signal turning sharply lower. All right, so that's the gamma position. So based on that, looking for a slow grind up earlier today and a positive gamma. All right, so now let's move on. Let's take a look at some setups. And I'm going to start with the S&P 500. And as always, I'm going to start by taking a look at what options traders have been doing today. This is the hero signal. This is available to Spotgamma subscribers. Hero is hedging impact real-time options. So we move from data that's updated once a day to data that's updated every 10 minutes to now data that's updated in real time. The white line is price for SPX, and the purple line is the hero signal, showing options trades and market maker hedging activity for the S&P 500 index components. We've already taken a look at a couple of those, SPX and SPY. This also includes options trades for ES and XSP. Kind of a choppy signal today, but overall the trend has been up until about noon, and then a move sharply lower after some consolidation. Note, SPX did trade up above the SPX, the Spotgamma implied one-day move high. That is based on the opening price for SPX, and the expected move that I use is based on the closing price for SPX from the previous day. That's kind of the standard way of looking at an expected move, or the more common way. Not saying one is better than the other. All right, so this is the rally this morning up until about noon, when the call buyers and put sellers take the foot off the gas. So let's go take a look at Bookmap now. Actually, let's take a look at the S&P 500 equity signal as well. This is showing options trades and market maker hedging activity for all 500 stocks in the S&P 500 index. Again, white line is price, and the purple line is the hero signal, again showing options trades and market maker hedging activity for the S&P 500 stocks. And note, this hero signal has not shifted down as sharply as the index signal. And hello, South Pole 12. Welcome. Glad you're here. We'll take a, I can take a look at AMD when I get to stocks. All right, so there's the S&P 500 index signal. Again, hero signal turning sharply lower. So let's go take a look at Bookmap. Zoom in here. Regular trading hours. Rally from the open, traders buying calls, selling puts. Actually, I'm going to have to zoom in. Oops. All right, that's a little better. All right, so rally from the open. Break above the volatility trigger, 69.15. Pull back to the SPY 690 level. Then a rally up, making a series of higher lows. All the way up to the positive gamma up above, as well as the ES, upper daily expected move. Note on the subchart, cumulative volume delta rising up until about 10:30, then it slows down quite a bit. Actually turns back down. Yellow line shows stop orders, helping to fuel that move higher up until the top just before noon. And note the light blue line in the subchart showing large traders fading that move with iceberg orders. All right, so rally from the open, pretty clear target, and then also clear signals with hero. The equity signal stopping, turning slightly lower, and the index signal turning sharply lower. Also cumulative volume delta turning lower. And you can see the larger sellers, magenta volume dots coming in. Magenta, the volume dots of Bookmap show market buying, buy and sell. Green volume dots indicate more buyers than sellers. Magenta dots, more sellers than buyers. All right, so that is the move this morning, bullish opening drive up to the upper daily expected move. All right, let's take a look at NASDAQ. I've got plenty of stocks I want to take a look at as well. All right, so NASDAQ, stronger than the S&P 500 today. Again, a rally from the open up to the upper daily expected move. Let's take a look at NASDAQ. So just like the S&P 500, there are two hero signals that we can take a look at. One is the NASDAQ index signal, also choppy, but overall uptrend up until about 12:15, then turning lower. So this is showing options trades and market maker hedging activity for the index components that we've already taken a look at, QQQ and NDX. And we can also take a look at the MAG7 signal. And it really didn't get going until about 1040 when traders started taking positive delta positions. And then NASDAQ stalled right around 12:15. So net overall for today, all the index hero signals up for the day, but pretty choppy. A little bit difficult to read if you're looking at a shorter time frame. So that's why we look at Bookmap and Hero. So back to Bookmap. Again, NASDAQ making a series of higher lows. There's that 1030 pullback, the volatility trigger if you missed. Entry points down below. Up to the upper daily expected move. And the QQQ 615 volatility trigger. And just like the SP 500, cumulative volume delta shown by the magenta line there, as well as buy stop orders fueling the move higher, while large traders were fading that move with iceberg orders they used to hide their size. And that is typical behavior of large traders selling strength and buying weakness. And that might have slowed down the rally today, but did not have a material impact. All right, so that's NASDAQ. Any questions about the indexes? Strong rally, strong continuation from Friday. All right, let's take a look at some stocks. And today what I'm going to do is focus on the MAG7 stocks. So let me point out something. So we'll go to Apple first. All right, so what I want to point out is let's take a look at, while we're looking at Apple, let's take a look at Apple. What I want to point out is Apple and the other MAG7 stocks now have Monday, Wednesday, and Friday options. So with the MAG7 stocks, Apple, Amazon, Google, Meta, Microsoft, NVDA, Tesla, you now have the choice of trading 0 DTE or 1 DTE options every day. Very nice addition for the MAG7 stocks. Let's open up options that expire today for Apple and take a look at volume and open interest. Very substantial. So traders are jumping right in and trading these options. So a great new addition to options trading for the SP 500, the MAG7 stocks. And I'm sure that will only increase the influence and volume of options on these 7 stocks. All right, so let's start with Apple. Bearish opening drive today. Let's take a look at Hero. I'm going to shift to puts and calls. Orange line showing calls, blue line showing puts. Bearish opening drive. Trader sell calls, buy puts. Directional lines indicates options delta. Flow alert comes in after the cash open. Get your attention, signals significant options activity. Again, traders sell calls, buy puts. Market makers take the opposite side of the trades, and they have to sell stock to hedge their delta exposure. So this is a bearish opening drive in Apple. And Apple's been strong the last couple of weeks. And it looks like traders may be trading out of Apple into some of the other MAG7 stocks that have been beat up, like Meta and Microsoft. And the Storm asked, can you explain how to read a bookmap chart for a beginner? I can't do a detailed explanation. I suggest you go to, there are plenty of resources for Bookmap. you can go to the Bookmap Learning Center. Just go to bookmap.com, look for education. Bookmap has an extensive learning center, many videos, and then you can also watch other webinars as well. Mine is a little bit more, my webinar is a little bit more advanced, but you can watch, for example, Bruce does a webinar at 10 a.m. on Monday, Tuesday, and Friday. I suggest that, and then start with the Learning Center. But when I go back to Bookmap, I'll briefly explain some things on the chart. All right, so this is Apple, bearish opening drive. So back to Apple now. All right, so what this is showing is, let's focus on the essentials here. Volume dots show, these are market orders. These are the aggressive buyers and sellers. This is what moves the market. So that's shown by the volume dots. Magenta dots indicate more, these are delta. So there's more sellers than buyers. Green volume dots indicate more buyers than sellers. So the volume dots are either going to be green or magenta. These are the colors that I've chosen based on whether there are more buyers for green volume dots or more sellers for magenta volume dots. So those are the aggressive orders. Then the heat map in Bookmap is showing a history of limit orders in the order book. So these are showing the passive orders, the limit orders. So down below here, these are limit buy orders. And they were finally consumed right around 10:45. More limit buy orders down below. And that liquidity in shown on the heat map tends to act as a magnet for price. And then the line down here below is cumulative volume delta. So you can see green volume dots starting to come in more right around 10:30, and cumulative volume delta starting to rise. And then I have a couple of volume profiles over on the right. This is the session volume profile showing buy, and this is showing delta for the entire session that began at 4 a.m. and then the chart volume profile that changes as I zoom in and out. So it's showing volume profile for whatever's on the chart. All right, so overall, this is a bearish opening drive. And let's go back. So buyers have come in right around 10:30, slowing this move down, as well as the put buyers took their foot off the gas right around 10:50. And then the call sellers also took their foot off the gas and then started up about noon and then took their foot off the gas, helping to fuel that next leg lower. All right, so that's Apple. Now we'll take a look at some bullish trades. So we're going to go through the Mag 7 again. So this is a bullish opening drive for Amazon. Took a little while to get started. Key support at the 205 hedge wall. Traders started buying calls right around 10 o'clock. And they continued to buy calls. They took the foot off the gas around noon. And now Amazon stalling, consolidating. So let's go take a look at Bookmap again. Remember, call buyers coming in strongly right around 10 a.m. Supported that 205 hedge wall. Let's go to Amazon. There's that key support, pullback, good entry point for the long. As traders start buying calls again. When traders buy calls, market makers sell the calls. They have to buy stock to hedge their delta exposure. You can also see all the green volume dots, a lot of aggressive buyers. Also rising cumulative volume delta that continues to rise. So traders buying shares, buying calls, and that drives price higher. So that's Amazon, key support at the hedge wall at 205. Next stock, Google. We'll find another key support level at the 320 hedge wall. Let's see what options traders are doing. We'll go to Google. Hero signal, a little bit difficult to read. Let's zoom in on this. Options Edge, welcome, glad you're here, and you're very welcome. A little bit of a choppy start. Hero signal, a little bit difficult to read. Key, though, was the support at the 320 hedge wall. Multiple tests of that level. And then finally, 10 o'clock, just like Amazon. Traders start buying calls. After that last test of the 320 hedge wall, Google trades higher. So one easy way to trade this is to sell a put spread or buy a call spread around that level. And all you're saying is all that has to happen, depending on where you trade, put your trade, is that Google has to remain above this level in today or Wednesday or Friday, whatever expiration you choose, and you'll make full profit on the trade. All right, so that's Google. Call buyers, starting to drive price higher as Google reverses higher after that final test of the 320 hedge wall. Turn up the volume dots just a little bit. Then it took a little while for the aggressive buyers to start to come in. Cumulative volume delta starts to rise about an hour later. All right, so that's Google. And it was hit a little bit after reporting earnings, but now trying to recover. All right, so let's take a look at Meta. Going through the Mag 7. Very nice. Long setup in Meta here today. Meta, another hedge wall reversal higher at 660 hedge wall. So let's see what options traders are doing in Meta. Meta initially jumped higher after reporting earnings, then reversed lower, and now trying to recover some of that. Key level again, 660 hedge wall. Multiple tests of that level. Final test just before 1030. Call buyers come in. Drive Meta much higher. Then when the call buyers take the foot off the gas, Meta consolidates. And they also started selling puts. Now the put line has turned flattened as well. So the call sellers and put buyers, put sellers, have taken the foot off the gas. So again, call buyers, put sellers, taking the foot off the gas. All right, so let's go back to Bookmap. There's that final test of the 630 level, 660 level, sorry. You can see the aggressive buyers starting to come in. A lot of green volume dots. Cumulative volume delta has already been rising since the open. And these pullbacks to the 660 level, making great entry points for long, up to liquidity targets at 670, 75, 80. And now again, call buyers, put sellers have taken the foot off the gas, and Meta's consolidating, but not moving much lower. So that's a good thing if you're long Meta. All right, so that's Meta. All right, so going through Mag 7 stocks, very nice bullish trade in Microsoft today. Microsoft has been beat up substantially, dropped quite a bit in the last couple months. So let's see what options traders have been doing in Microsoft. Again, sticking with our Mag 7 theme today. All right, so this is a bullish opening drive. Microsoft trading up above its 400 hedge wall, key gamma strike put wall. Didn't quite move down to that level. Full alert comes in just after the cash opening, signals significant options activity. Get your attention. Traders buy calls aggressively. Microsoft rises. Few pullbacks. But traders continue to buy calls. Microsoft moves higher. And the call buyers are still buying calls, just not as aggressively, just slowing down a bit. So the slope is getting less steep, but traders continue to buy calls, taking advantage of the big dip in Microsoft to get long. All right, back to Bookmap. You can see all the green volume dots. A lot of traders buying shares. So they're buying calls and buying shares, driving price higher. That's Microsoft, NVDA. Another bullish opening drive. This one was very fast. Lasted about 15 minutes, then consolidation. So let's see what options traders are doing. Go to NVIDIA. Let's zoom in on this. So very strong bullish opening drive. Traders buying calls. NVIDIA breaks above the 190 call wall. Slices right through that. Then right around 950, the call buyers take the foot off the gas and NVIDIA consolidates. And even when they started selling calls, it looks like that did not have much impact on price after that bullish move higher. All right, interesting for the day. Let's take a look at the total signal here. That the hero signal is about flat for the day. Minus 3 million. And that is that's definitely flat for NVIDIA, which trades typically substantially higher delta notional for options. All right, so quick bullish opening drive. Then consolidation. All right, so let's go back, NVIDIA. And it looks like there are still plenty of aggressive buyers shown by the green volume dots. All right, let's take a look at Tesla. Tesla also bullish today. So we've got 6 bullish, 1 bearish for the Mag 7. Let's see what options traders are doing. Go to Tesla. Pretty choppy hero signal, but it looks like if we take a look at the put line a bit more clear. Traders selling puts from the open, took a little break, started selling puts again. Tesla moved higher until about 12:30, now consolidating. Again, driven by, looks like a little bit more clearly by put sellers, with the call buyers coming in waves. But interesting for the day as well as the call signal overall is negative. But the put signal is also negative, indicating traders selling puts. But actually, net for the day, buying puts as well. Sorry about that. So net for the day, the delta notional is negative. Net for the day, again, traders buying puts, selling calls. total negative. But Tesla moving higher. Aggressive buyers, green volume dots. So it looks like the share buyers driving price higher for Tesla. And earlier put sellers. All right, that's Tesla. All right, any questions? All right, let's take a look at some other stocks. So South Pole wanted to take a look at AMD. Sure. So semiconductor stocks strong. We saw NVDA strong today. AMD, same thing. Let's see what options traders are doing at AMD. Bullish opening drive. And it took the call buyers a little while to catch up to the price movement. Doesn't really matter when traders buy calls, market makers sell the calls. Again, they have to buy stock to hedge their delta exposure. And they continue to buy calls until somewhere between 10 and 10:15. And at that time, that's when AMD consolidated. But they do continue to buy calls now. Back to Bookmap, AMD, strong day. A lot of aggressive buyers, traders buying shares. Shown by all the green volume dots. Deep pullback, good entry point for long. And AMD continues to move higher. So I've got two other semiconductor stocks we can take a look at. One is Broadcom. All right, Broadcom, strong rally today. Let's see what options traders are doing. Also call buyers. Zoom on this just a bit. Initial opening drive. Call buyers take the foot off the gas for a few minutes. Then they join the party again. Broadcom moves higher. All right, so that's Broadcom. So three semiconductor stocks, AMD, Broadcom, NVIDIA, all trading higher today, driven by share buyers as well as call buyers. Let's take a look at one other semiconductor stock, actually a memory stock, and Micron, not the same story. Micron's in the news today. It is shut out of the NVIDIA HBM4 plan, I guess due to specification something. So Micron not doing as well. And last time I checked, it was down for the day. All right, let's take a look at Bookmap. Go to Micron. All right, so Micron actually up on the day. Let's see. It's up on the, from the open, that's shown here by the large green volume dot. That's the opening print. So Micron is up since the open. Let me check one thing. And Micron is down slightly for the day based on the closing price from Friday, but based on the opening price today, it is higher. After a pretty choppy move higher up to 390. Note the if Micron does move higher, 395, put wall, hedge wall up above. All right, I've got a couple of other stocks we can take a look at. One is Robinhood. Even though Bitcoin down and Robinhood also often trades in sync with Bitcoin, but today moving higher based on an analyst upgrade. Traders buying calls. Robinhood has been beaten down pretty substantially. We'll see what traders doing. Take a look at order flow here. All right, bullish trade. Traders buying shares, buying calls. In Robinhood. All right, I've got about 5 minutes left. Does anyone have any stocks they want me to take a look at? All right, let's take a look at the indexes again. All right, so after chopping around for 2.5 hours, it looks like ES is trying to break above. It's the ES upper daily expected move. Zoom in on this just a little bit. Let's see what options traders are doing. I'm going to shift back to the total signal. Go to the S&P 500 index signal. All right, so it looks like the S&P 500 index signal started turning higher right around 1:30. Or actually more clearly at 2 p.m. And now S&P 500 starting to respond, move higher up above the ES upper daily expected move. Let's check the equity signal. And Armin wants to take a look at PayPal. Welcome, Armin. Glad you're here. Yeah, we can take a look at PayPal. I don't have PayPal in Bookmap. We can take a look at Hero here. So it looks like several of the other stocks that we took a look at today, PayPal found support at a key level in the morning. The 40 hedge wall key gamma strike put wall did not come back to test that level, made a higher low. And choppy hero signal, but PayPal did move higher, now consolidating. Note the peak pattern in hero here with a flow alert. Flow alerts at extremes can often signal significant option activity, but also potential reversal in hedging flow. In this first case, from negative delta to positive delta. In the second case, from positive delta to negative delta. So there's PayPal finding resistance right around 41 or so. All right, back to the S&P 500. Let's check equities. Also turning higher now. So the equities hero signal and the index hero signal all now moving higher. Back to Bookmap. Yes, breaking up above its upper daily expected move. Finding some sellers at the 7,000 level. You can see the liquidity at that level. Then liquidity up above, right around 7,002. This is the, looks like a little bit more transient. Let's go check trace. All right, SPX making new highs. You can see the hero signal on this chart as well has turned steeply higher now. Looks like toward the end of the day, a little bit of pocket of negative gamma. Might appear toward the end of the day. That's just below the 7,000 call wall, key gamma strike or absolute gamma strike. Let's check charm. Charm showing buying support and selling pressure based on time decay. showing a potential pin target right at 69.80. So that's SPX. And that would be equivalent to ES 7000. All right, back to Gamma. Back to Bookmap. So right now, ES exactly at that 7,000 level. That's ES 7,000. With the SPX 7,000 still up above. All right, everyone. Last call, questions, comments, stocks you want to take a look at. All right, everyone, thank you very much for watching. Remember, on Wednesday, jobs report comes out, delayed due to the partial government shutdown. We'll talk about that on Wednesday. Everyone, thank you very much for watching. Have a great afternoon. I'll see you on Wednesday. Bye.